Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat with Dr. Foojan.
The book, I call that shock absorbing, which I see women do so often for their partners, for everyone, but for their partners. And this idea that I can't make him uncomfortable. And so to get my needs met, I have to say it just right, make sure he's in a good mood, come across as non-critically as possible, as opposed to being two emotionally mature adults where you can say things directly, not meanly, not attacking. I'm not talking about throwing hand grenades, but being clear, concise, direct, which is what I'm always trying to teach people: clear, concise, direct. And this to me is people who have not been raised to be able to manage their own nervous system when they get activated, when something feels like it's threatening the attachment. And so with women, oftentimes that comes across as fear. Like, I get so destabilized if my partner is upset with me that I'd rather just say nothing. And with men, I think that there can be this shutting down, or I love the term turtling, just go under the shell and wait for the storm to come to pass. And then he comes back out of the shell and just goes on as though the fight never happened, right? And nothing changes.
What if your emotional life didn't have to feel like a constant reaction or a constant recovery? Welcome to the International Awareness Integration Institute Virtual Clinic, a global online clinic offering psychotherapy, coaching, integrative well-being services, and mind-body practices, all in one place. At International Awareness Integration Institute, we don't just talk about change, we train it. Our work is guided by awareness integration theory, an evidence-based psychological and educational model designed to reduce anxiety and depression patterns, strengthen emotional regulation, and help you build a life that feels meaningful, steady, and fulfilling. Whether you're navigating stress, relationship strain, burnout, life transitions, trauma symptoms, or simply the feeling that you've outgrown your old life, you'll find a clear path forward here, supported by licensed professionals and expert practitioners. If you're ready to feel better, think clearer, and live fully, join the International Awareness Integration Institute Virtual Clinic today. Visit awarenessintegration.com and book your first session or join our membership. Introducing a powerful new update from the Foojan App. Now with flexible subscription plans to fit your journey monthly, quarterly, or yearly. Our new AI-driven onboarding customizes your path to feeling better, faster, and enjoy a refreshed experience with stunning 3D interactive videos. Update now. Empower your inner voice with Foojan. Download today. If you've been doing your best, but still feel stuck in anxiety, relationship stress, or the weight of old patterns, this is where things begin to shift. At the Awareness Integration Institute Virtual Clinic, we offer something different. We provide two pathways forward. In psychotherapy, our licensed clinicians help heal unresolved trauma, reduce anxiety and depression, and navigate life transitions. In coaching, our certified coaches help you build confidence, leadership, and relationship mastery, turning insight into decisive action. Both are guided by Dr. Foojan Zeine's evidence-based awareness integration theory, a structured roadmap from awareness to integration to action. During our summit, save 25% on all services from March 22nd through 29th. Visit awarenessintegration.com to book your first session or request to be matched with the right provider.
Welcome to the Inner Voice, a Heartfelt Chat podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Foojan Zeine. I'm a psychotherapist, author, and the founder of the International Awareness Integration Institute. Today, I will be talking with Tonya Lester. She's a licensed clinical social worker and is the author of Push Back, Live, Love, and Work with Others Without Losing Yourself. That's the book we're going to be talking about today. And a Brooklyn-based psychotherapist and a writer known for her work with relationships and communication. Her essay, Couples Therapist, Heal Thyself, was published in the Modern Love column in the New York Times. And she has been writing the popular Staying Sane Inside Insanity blog for Psychology Today since 2020. She has been featured as an expert in The Guardian, Newsweek, Will and Good, Huffington Post, Fatherly, and the Bumble site, The Buzz. We had a great conversation about how women can know their value, look at how they communicate, where is it that they lose power, how to come back in that empowerment, and be able to share who they are, what they're desiring, what they need in an intimate relationship or even in a work setting. So I'm sure that this conversation will be very valuable for you. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast and my YouTube channel and connect with me through my website for me to get to know me and read about all that I do is foojanzeine.com. But I really ask you to also go to the iaii.life, iaii.life. And is a team of psychotherapists, coaches, mind and body practitioners, functional medicine to be able to support you across the world, across the globe in all that your needs are. And for you to be able to live in a healthier mental health and physical health. And do a lot more of the prevention work so that you don't become mentally ill or physically ill. So it's so important. We've brought the whole team together for you so that they could support you. Go to all the social media platforms in Dr. Foojan Zeine and share with me your thoughts. I love to hear from you. So without further ado, here's Tonya Lester.
Listen up if you want to promote your personal growth and self-awareness. I found the Foojan app last month and I have been absolutely loving it. I personally have never learned guided meditation, but thanks to this app, I now have learned incredible tools for my own stress relief and emotional self-awareness. Not to mention, there are self-evaluation tools and professional coaching available to utilize however your journey to self-discovery takes you. Join Foojan today and redefine your life one step at a time.
Now, sometimes the mind understands, but the body still holds the stress. That's why the International Awareness Integration Institute Virtual Clinic offers mind-body services that help you regulate your nervous system, restore calm, and return to yourself physically, emotionally, and mentally. Our reflective practices include guided mindfulness, breath work, yoga, and grounding exercises, and specifically curated to support emotional regulation and physiological calm. Our somatic integration practices are a refined body-led approach where healing begins with presence, working with breath, sensation, posture, and gentle movement so resilience becomes felt, not forced. And for those who want deeper whole person support, we offer functional well-being guidance, addressing the interplay between hormonal balance, digestion, sleep architecture, and lifestyle factors with a root cause holistic framework. This is not self-care as a luxury. This is self-regulation as a life skill and a pathway to fulfillment. Choose the support your body and life have been asking for. Visit awarenessintegration.com to join a weekly meditation, explore somatic healing, breathwork, yoga-inspired movement, or functional medicine services, and start feeling the difference.
So nice to have you, everyone. Tonya Lester with us. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. Great to be here.
You have recently wrote a book by the name of Pushback. And a lot of the book is also toward women. Not that it doesn't work for men, but you said that you have seen patterns that happen more for women. You're a woman. Did you experience it with yourself? And that's how it showed up for you to share this with other women. Absolutely.
So I've been a couples therapist for many years. I also see individuals, but I see a lot of couples. And even with individuals, as I'm sure you know, I'm sure it's the same in your practice, really people come to therapy to talk about their relationships. And I found that over and over, I was really encouraging clients to take more risks in their relationship and speak up and be known, and be willing to rock the boat and engage in healthy conflict with the idea that that's what brings us true emotional intimacy. And then I realized, I don't do that. I am very good at giving this advice to other people, but I'm not doing this. And then at the same time, my sister, who I'm very, very close with, was ending a very bad relationship. And as she came out of it, really realized how silenced she had been as a very successful, she's an attorney, she's executive director of an organization. And so I really started to think, like, why are we like this? Well, like, why even the two of us who were really raised to kind of go conquer the world and yet still finding ourselves either silencing ourselves or being silenced in our romantic relationships, and then noticing that this was what I was seeing in clients again and again and again.
One of the things that I've really noticed, Tonya, is I'm also, a couples therapist. So one thing that I noticed, and I want you to share with me your experience and, how that experience also relates to your book, Pushback. And I know that I'm generalizing, and I kind of apologize for, to our audience, that when I'm generalizing does not mean all of you and 100% of people. It just shows up more, right? Whether it's cultural or, brain activity or on all of it. I've watched men get in relationships, not necessarily at work, but in relationships, like in romantic relationships or their matehood, that when conflict arises, unless they're the one who create the conflict, for example, dominant men, I work with cultures who come from a patriarchal system. So, when they come in and state something, that it has to go. But if there is a pushback, if there is a controversial concept coming, or if there's a need or a desire that shows up from their mate, and if this need and desire shows up even as a complaint or a complaint, that they just close up. And I can see many times where women have had to do different strategies to be able to get what their desires are, whether it was to set a boundary or whether it was to gain something, whether they had to do it in a direct way or a non-direct way, or do all of these, backflips in order to do that. What are your experience on this?
So in the book, I call that shock absorbing, which I see women do so often for their partners, for everyone, but for their partners. And this idea that I can't make him uncomfortable. And so to get my needs met, I have to say it just right, make sure he's in a good mood, come across as non-critically as possible, as opposed to being two emotionally mature adults where you can say things directly, not meanly, not attacking. I'm not talking about throwing hand grenades, but being clear, concise, direct, which is what I'm always trying to teach people: clear, concise, direct. And this to me is people who have not been raised to be able to manage their own nervous system when they get activated, when something feels like it's threatening the attachment. And so with women, oftentimes that comes across as fear. Like, I get so destabilized if my partner is upset with me that I'd rather just say nothing. And with men, I think that there can be this shutting down, or I love the term turtling, just go under the shell and wait for the storm to come to pass. And then he comes back out of the shell and just goes on as though the fight never happened, right? And nothing changes. And I feel like so much of the most important work with couples is really, how do I stay grounded and centered in myself? How do I stay connected to my partner while speaking directly to the problem that we're having? And this is where we get, we have responsibility to show up as an adult in our relationships. And part of that is not turtling, right? Being able to say, okay, what I'm hearing is upsetting to me. It feels hurtful, but can I stay grounded? Can I stay flexible and be really listening to my partner? So that's what I encourage people to do. But I agree, you're saying a lot of men are socialized not to do that shutting down or that turtling. And I think that's absolutely true. And sometimes there's some psychoeducation that is the therapist. We need to help people catch up with how to be in this relationship.
You kept using the word being an adult. So let's clarify what that means, because many people are like, what do you mean? I'm already 18 and up and I'm already in an adult relationship. So I remember I had written for a magazine, an article, and it said exactly what you shared. It's like, I said, you actually need to be an adult in order to be in a marriage. So, and I remember the people who were running the magazine kept changing this title. And I'm saying, why are you changing the title? It has a particular message. And they're like, no, people are going to be very offended when you tell them like they're acting like a child. It's like, that's not the point. The point is there is a distinction where you act like an adult or you are, expressing yourself as an adult. Can you please share what you mean by that?
Yeah. I have a whole chapter in the book on emotional maturity, which I guess is the more specific way of saying being an adult in a relationship. So an emotionally mature person can be compassionate towards themselves and their own feelings and their own experience while also having some compassion for their partner, right? I say to people all the time, we want to remember we love this person, so even when we're upset, they can manage their own nervous system so that they don't lash out, overreact, throw the hand grenade like I meant before. Someone who's slamming doors, shouting, or shuts down completely, or it's totally fine to cry in an argument, of course, but if they can no longer participate in the discussion at hand, that to me often is emotional immaturity. Now, are you allowed to take a break and take a minute and calm your nervous system and maybe even write down what you want to say so you'll be better understood? Yes, right. There's every therapist will say you take a time out. Very, very often we need a minute. And that's emotional maturity too, knowing when you need to step away. But when I'm saying be an adult, it's like to take full responsibility for yourself and how you're showing up in the relationship. No excuses about you were angry, no excuses about how you were hurt. Like we are adults are responsible for their behavior 100% of the time. And it's really taking ownership of that even in your closest relationships, or especially in your closest relationships.
One of the things that I've noticed is also that when someone wants to take a stand for their needs, right? Like, I want this, I have this desire, or I have this need, and I'm sharing it. And so when I'm sharing what I want, one, I got to be clear in what it is that I want, how I want it. And it's not this vague concept of, I'm going to share with you nonchalantly what I want, and then I have an expectation that you're going to come through exactly how I imagined it to be. And that's why you keep coming like clear, concise, direct, which is knowing inside what I want, how do I want it, how do I share it, and then after all of that, there's also this essence of having the capacity to negotiate with the person if it doesn't show up exactly as that. But there's also this part which you say like push back. So the one is the skills of knowing what I want and how to share it. But there's also another skill that you're sharing, which is if there's something that is coming forward and I don't want it. And in the dialogue, I need to fold. In a dialogue, I need to lose my power. I gain my power in order to share and to insist or to negotiate more from a powerful place in what I want.
So that's it is complicated, right? How do we assert our own needs when the other person is saying, I'm not going to meet that need? And is that what is that from? Does your partner not care? Does your partner have contempt for you? Is your partner not open to negotiation and compromise? Can they simply not provide it? Or is it, in all of those cases, that might be a relationship that cannot be sustained. What we're looking for is reciprocity and collaboration in our relationships. And so, people are not mind readers. People are not going to do things exactly as we want. But can we speak up? And if we get resistance, can we remain grounded and clear in what we want, with the idea that a loving partner wants us to be happy, right? A loving partner is not seeing us as the adversary. And, what I do think sometimes happens is we speak up and it gets maybe kind of agreed to and then ignored almost immediately, or I've had women say a million times to me, if I don't stay mad, everything just goes back to how it was. And I don't want to stay mad in my relationship all the time. Well, no, nobody wants that. But can we have, like you said, don't say something just kind of casually and expect it to change everything. We really want to sit down and say, I have something I want to share with you. I think it might be hard to hear, but I love you. And I'm saying this because I think it will strengthen our relationship and it's something very important to me. And then you say what you have to say, right? Like, let's give it the gravitas that it deserves if it's a true need for us.
And you set up the stage because you just said, like, you set it up where this is, I understand this is going to be difficult and this is what we're going to share. There's one piece that I want to walk a little bit back before the conversation starts.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, what do you do internally first to get yourself ready, where you don't fall, when you don't become small, when you do think that what you need is valuable and that you deserve to have what your needs are, not from if I have, I'm entitled to my need, but I am, I'm valuable and I deserve to be heard and then negotiated with, or, given what I need. Sometimes not on the first round, many people share what they need. It doesn't come through. It gets ignored. It gets pushed back. It gets all of that. And then there's this resentment that gets built, right? Then the person kind of brews in this resentment and they'll do a little bit more like maybe passive aggressively, they'll hint to it. They'll give sarcastic remarks. They withhold being together and togetherness and intimacy because the resentment is there. They feel not heard, not accepted. All of that shows up. So sometimes when they really get ready to sit down and talk, the regulation of like their anger and resentment shows up.
Yeah.
Body language and their tonality in their voice. What can someone do first in order to get themselves ready in order to set that stage up and then have the ability to safely share what they want?
Yeah. I recommend often that we write down what we want to say, right? It's good to practice. It's good for us to get it on the page, get really clear, right? This is the same advice if you want to change something at work, like be the one who writes the memo, So sit down and write out what you need to say. Make sure you're not using accusatory language. I have a little frame in the book. I notice, I imagine, I feel, I need. Take a minute to get yourself very clear. Take a few deep breaths. Have your intention be, I want to be clear, direct, kind, and I want to be heard. How will I know that I'm heard? Like what will make this conversation successful to me? And honestly, you could add that to the, I said, like, we sit down and we say, I have something that might be hard to hear, but it's very important to me. And I will know that this is a successful conversation because we will agree on how we do A, B, and C going forward. Like, get that really, really clear in your mind. Preparation helps our anxiety. Another thing that can help if you're really nervous, go take a walk outside before you get started. Take a shower. If we can change our states, sometimes that helps regulate our nervous system. And I also think, and I think this is somewhat controversial because people are so allergic to an ultimatum. But the truth is, having non-negotiables, having deal breakers, knowing what you can and cannot deal with in a relationship is the bedrock of healthy self-esteem. If you feel like it doesn't matter what you want, it's time to bring in a marriage counselor. If you feel like you're routinely ignored and you say this and you try to be very, very clear, because sometimes it's not that you haven't been clear enough. Sometimes it's because the other person isn't invested enough in your happiness. So sometimes it's not that you haven't been clear. So first, be clear so you can say, I said it, I said it in a calm way. But there's another, I think women are so afraid of crying or seeming angry. You don't have to be a Stepford wife. Emotion is what gives it some gravitas. Like, he should know or she should know that you're really upset, right? So it's okay to have some emotion as long as you're not attacking. That's what gives it some weight.
When do you think they should push back?
I'm immediately, honestly, like, I think if we set up our relationships where we say what we need to say to the person who needs to hear it, and we can tolerate them saying what they need to say to us, we set up an expectation of shared feelings, of nothing being secret, no passive aggressive resentment, everything's on the table. And these are the healthiest, most connected relationships because each person is truly known. Whereas what often happens, of course, is that we fall in love and we really focus and emphasize on all the similarities. And then we want to keep that good vibe going as long as we can. And often how that shows up is ignoring things we don't like, trying to suppress parts of ourselves because we want to maintain harmony. And women are so socialized to maintain harmony at all costs. But you will disappear in the relationship if the point is only to have harmony. It is disharmony, it is healthy conflict, and it is speaking up that really allows for true emotional intimacy to flourish. So I always say when someone is fighting with you, be glad she's upset, be glad she is in it, like she is trying to be heard. It's when someone goes silent that they're often plotting how they're going to remove themselves from a situation. And so is it done the right way? Again, not attacking. I think pushing back is really just speaking up. It's not yelling. It's just saying, oh, I don't know if that's going to work for me. Oftentimes that's the pushback, right? It's not always like turning on your heel and slamming the door. It can be a much quieter, more collaborative approach, especially if you start it early.
I also think there's a distinct difference between anger and being angry versus, being assertive and sharing what you need to say. I think a lot of people think that if you are being forceful with anger behind it, that's how you're taking care of yourself or you're taking a stand for yourself. And there's a difference between the inner power that you have, that you feel confident.
That's right.
What you say is important, and the confidence shows up, not the anger.
Right.
Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean that's to be very clear on what your values are, what your value is, and what you will and won't tolerate. That is very, very grounding. Then you are operating from a position of power because you're not going to just accept whatever behavior falls off the truck in front of you, right? You're entering a relationship knowing your full worth. So a lot of times real anger is coming from a place of desperation because you don't actually know those things. And so you're saying, tell me you value me because I don't know if I value myself. Whereas if we move in an assertive, confident, with a lot of clarity around what we want and what we won't accept, I think we're coming in from a much more powerful place. And there's a lot about values in the book because I think also sometimes women, they can get confused about what they want. If you feel like your greatest contribution to a relationship is harmony at all times, at all costs, you're going to lose sight of what you value and what you want in a relationship. And so there is a whole piece of this about really knowing yourself and feeling worthy of asking for what you need.
So there's a difference between like trying to prove that you're valuable or what you need is valid versus knowing that and then sharing it from that knowing, from that solidness versus what you were saying, like, oh, I don't know if I deserve it. I don't know if he's going to accept it, or I don't know if that's going to happen. And then you're going with a forceful proving something. And then usually, there's a backlash. Tonya, I mean, as women, we also work in corporations, right? So there's a relationship that we have with people at work. Do you see the same experience of folding, holding back, happening also in the corporate world, or have you seen a shift that has happened, in the work setting?
I definitely see a holding back 100%. Again, it's that sort of women being these kind of universal expectation of promoting harmony. Or if a woman doesn't do that, she's often perceived by the people around her as very difficult, right? Which is we want to avoid the title all the time as being a difficult woman, when in fact, many of us could use to be a little bit more difficult, actually. And a point I definitely make in the book is, what's interesting to me is that some women really thrive career-wise, and I have no trouble. I have no trouble being very direct in a professional setting, right? It would show up for me in my personal life, and other people are the opposite, right? They feel quite silenced at work, whereas in their relationship, either just because they have a lot of confidence in their relationship, or because they and their partner have co-created an environment together where speaking up and sharing is allowed, right? So it's different people, of course, need different things. I think the more women are in leadership, the more women there are in the workplace. I think that this naturally will start to shift, or has a little bit started to shift. But when we look at how leadership is still overwhelmingly male, white male, we have a lot of growth to do. When this will really change is when everyone's voice is valued. It's not saying you're more important. It's saying that you deserve a seat at the table and you deserve your voice to be heard. And we have to believe that for ourselves before the world sometimes believes that.
Everyone, the book by Tonya Lester, Push Back, Live, Love, and Work with Others Without Losing Yourself. So when you're looking at putting yourself out there and being the person that you need to be in order to fulfill whatever it is that you're asking to do, what happens when there is a conflict that arises? Like you said, they might be called difficult, or and then you said just sometimes you do need to be difficult. So can you open up the conversation of what do you mean by being difficult when there is a contradiction, when there is an actual conflict, whether it's at work or your intimate relationship, when you are clear, you are concise, you are direct, and it really comes back at you, whether you're being punished or consequences are given to you because what you're desiring is not going to be given to you.
Mm-hmm.
What are your suggestions based on that? So you've done the first, taking a stance. However, you're hitting conflict, you're hitting a wall.
So, in a personal relationship, I guess this is true in a professional relationship as well. If you're coming clearly and you're saying what you need, and you are getting a lot of pushback or dismissal, or simply being told no, right? And I think, as in a personal relationship, we aren't allowed to say no to our partner. Like, there's never any room for that. It's always like, we are going to collaborate until we figure out a solution that we both feel okay about, or we're going to do this for a certain time, and then we're going to evaluate it. The point is that there is you have a partner in your partner grappling with issues that feel, even some issues that feel intractable. Like, is this person hanging in there with me because my happiness is as important to them as their own? And, when we enter a relationship, if both people feel that the other person's happiness is as important as their own, not more, I'm not saying to throw your own happiness under the bus, but have that same as collaboration, if you win, I win attitude, you can get through almost anything. There is a ton of flexibility and growth possible in those relationships. When you don't have that, when it's like either you're happy or I'm happy, or I don't like what you suggested, so I'm just going to shut it down without any further discussion, then we're not really in that emotionally mature relationship. And you have to look very hard at whether you can stay, right? I mean, we do give up some things to be in a relationship, but if it's a key thing, something you were really ready to go to the mat for, and you've just been dismissed, then you have to decide whether that's a deal breaker for you. And in the book, I talk about grappling issues versus deal breakers. And the truth is, more than the issue at hand. It's like, am I with a partner who wants to grapple with me because they care? They're so invested in my happiness as well. And these are the partners we want to choose. And then in a work environment, it's like, is it worth it for me to stay, or has this environment become so negative because of the way I'm being shut down that I just have to find a new job, right? I mean, many of us, everyone has that experience at some point of like, no, they're not invested in growing with me. They don't care what I'm asking for. I need to find a healthier environment for myself.
Yes. And I think in some of the relationships that are, obviously long marriages with children, and some with the cultures that possibly leaving the relationship is not as easy, like you just, that you have to consider a lot of different matters, is learning how to, how to still within the same relationship find ways to not lose yourself, find ways to keep yourself in the dialogue consistently and not shut down. Because the minute the person shuts down and goes into this kind of resigning that
Yes.
I matter in this relationship, depression, illnesses, and there was pretty much at that moment, relationship is over. It's more like a transactional relationship that is continuing for other reasons. But if you're no longer inside the relationship, there is no relationship. So it's so important for you to know who you are and, what your value is, and how to constantly within yourself, knowing that I deserve to keep sharing my value no matter what. However,
Right.
like, if someone is not in a relationship, which they can call, because of cultural perspective, directly can say something, they still have to find the way for, for that mate, for that relationship, in how to stay, systematically engaged. And I say this because, a lot of our audience might not be just from the Western, Northwestern communities and cultures, which there's more of an equal opportunity relationship, that a lot might come also from cultures that are a little bit more patriarchal, and the system and the structure is so set that, having a voice it sometimes creates consequences. So it's like, how do you still say the voice? How do you create those voices? How do you still say what you need to say without losing yourself, which is really what your book is about. Don't lose yourself. Hold yourself in that space.
Yeah. Stay grounded in your values. Be clear, at least with yourself, about what you want. And I'll also offer, I've seen many cases where a relationship was extremely traditional with fairly rigid gender roles. And I believe, that it still stands that if both partners are invested in the other one's happiness, that there can be a lot of flexibility. I think even if there is a situation where because of the culture, the man kind of holds much more power in the relationship, I still believe that if he cares about her experience, that she will have a voice in the relationship. And if she doesn't, then it's a different conversation about protecting yourself in a relationship that you feel you cannot leave when your needs aren't being taken into account. And that's a different book.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Is there anything we haven't shared that you need to share?
Well, just to reiterate that it is through pushing back that we are truly known. It is through being truly known that we achieve emotional intimacy. And that very often, if we don't speak up, then the relationship as it is the best it will ever be, right? It's your investment in making our one life. We only have one shot, one bite at the apple. This is the best it will be. And it's worth fighting for ourselves and for our partners to have a better relationship and more emotional intimacy. That's the stuff, that's what life is about. We're on this earth to connect. And so I really encourage people to speak up in their relationships.
Everyone, go get the book, Push Back, and Live, Love, and Work with Others Without Losing Yourself by Tonya Lester. Tonya, where can people find you?
I'm on Instagram, Tonya Lester Psychotherapy, and I'm just starting a Substack like this week, so brand new, called Worth It, and it's about creating relationships that are, worth the trouble. So
Beautiful. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
And for all of you who are out there, create an amazing life for yourself and everyone around you. And until next week, bye-bye.
Awareness, integration theory, certification programs. If you're a psychotherapist, clinician, or coach ready to elevate your impact, I invite you to become certified in the Awareness Integration Theory, AIT model. AIT is a structured, evidence-informed approach that strengthens emotional regulation, reduces anxiety and depression patterns, and helps clients create lasting change. Our training is practical, clear, and immediately usable in sessions, so you can work with more confidence and consistency. Join a global community of practitioners shaping the future of integrative mental health. Become AIT certified today. Visit awarenessintegration.com.